I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Quincy City Council meeting Monday, September 18th, 2023. It is now 6:30 p.m. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico.
Present.
Counselor Kane.
Present.
Counselor Devine.
Present.
Counselor Harris.
Present.
Counselor Liang.
Present.
Counselor Mahoney. Counselor McCarthy.
Present.
Counselor Phelan.
Present.
President DeBona.
Present.
8 members, you have quorum.
8 members, we have a quorum. Please stand if you can. Tonight, we're dedicating the meeting to Richard Mead, longtime Quincy Planning Board Department for 34 years, served as the planning director for 17 years. Just recently, before he passed, he was the chairman of the Quincy Planning Board. He was a community activist, involved in the city. He coached youth soccer, basketball, and baseball. We want to thank him for all his work he's done for the city. I know the planning department misses him already, and we want to dedicate tonight to Richard Mead. So please, if you can, please have a moment of silence. Thank you, and please turn to the American flag.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please read the open meeting law.
Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. First item on the agenda, please.
Broadband update.
I'd like to turn it over to the Chief of Staff, Chris Walker. You may go ahead. You have the floor.
Through you, Mr. President, thank you very much. Thank you, Councilor Andronico, Councilor Kane, for requesting this update. We had a pretty busy summer on this project. The design team, Tilson Engineering, is close to finalizing the low-level design of the 2 pilot areas, which are included a neighborhood in Marymount and include a neighborhood in Quincy Point, which would be the pilot program for the city's broadband access. Those low-level designs, it's actually the reverse of what you might think. Low-level is actually more specific. It's more detailed. It's actually the construction drawings. It's the full engineering. It's all the schematics that need to be done for us to be back before this body and show you what we have, start working through the economics of it and going forward. At the same time, there's a high-level design going on for the entire city. That's more of the bird's eye view. As we've discussed before, that's along the lines of figuring out where we can do above ground, below ground, what areas make sense, where there's some challenges in the ground, above ground, those sorts of things. That process precedes the full intensive engineering work that goes into coming up with construction drawings for the whole city. But that will help us, that will inform the process for the full city. But the low-level design, spoke to the folks after the request came in for an update, that we expect to have a body of work the end of this month, first of next month, for us to share. And at that point in time, we'll start talking about the economics, what makes sense, how we market this, how we move forward with the community, obviously neighborhood meetings, as much as this body, particularly you, Councilor, and Councilor Kane, have been discussing this over the course of the last several years. You know, we need to talk to the community and get buy-in. That's going to be a big piece of this whole process. That's on the engineering and design side. The other piece is the actual operation of the network that we're going to set up. This summer, the city issued an RFP for vendors to operate the open access network. And with the President's indulgence, I'd like to turn that over to Councilor Kane to talk in a little bit more detail about the open access process and how we go forward from there and what that means in terms of the whole process. He's obviously been at the forefront of this from the beginning, and I felt it more appropriate for him to speak on it since I'm not 100% sure.
What this is, yeah.
First, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Chris, for the update. This is exciting. Good to know that, I mean, we're at the end of September, almost the beginning of October, so I can't wait to see the quote-unquote body of work from Tilson so we can move this forward. It's been a long time coming, and I remain grateful to the mayor for his support in, investigating the viability of this project, and for my colleagues in the council for their support, and for the residents of the city who continue to email me and call me about this project and wonder when it's finally going to come to life, because they're looking for options. And again, this was the reason why we put forward this project, was because it was a solution to a problem that residents had, and we found this model. So there's two parts to the project. There's the infrastructure, which are the lines and the wires or the fiber that get laid, whether overhead on the poles and underground. And I think Mr. Walker alluded to that. In some cases, there's going to be a combination of that throughout the city. But then on top of that, what enables the competitive marketplace for residents to have multiple options of internet service providers, which is the goal. So have multiple service providers, which will drive competition. So service quality will go up, while at the same time price will go down over time. And that is controlled by what's called a dynamic open access layer. So it's essentially a software as a service, or a SaaS level, that sits on top of the municipal broadband or the fiber infrastructure across the city. And it will be sort of relayed to you like you'd be choosing how to pay for a particular utility. So you'd pay for the package of internet service that fits you best. That's based on broadband capacity and speed. And so that's sort of the menu, if you will, of options that will allow you through that dynamic open access layer. And the company that manages the dynamic open access layer is a company called Entry Point Networks, who has been working hand in hand with us over the past 5 years in developing the master plan for this project. And now, as we move forward, have been giving us, counsel and advice as we move forward, because they have implemented this model in places around the country, which is what we're adopting here. So again, grateful to my colleagues, to the mayor, to Mr. Walker for working this through. We look forward to seeing the body of work and moving these pilot areas forward, because I know that the people are looking for it. So let's get going. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other councilors? I'd like to recognize Councilor Andronico.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Walker and Councilor Kane, for the update on that. I just wanted to make note that the folks in Quincy Point are pretty excited about the opportunity for a pilot program. I had a number of people over the summer ask me about when they could expect that to be up and running. So I think in terms of buy-in is concerned, that we will have critical mass to have a successful pilot program and make tweaks throughout the city to make sure that we have a successful citywide program for everyone. But appreciate the update and looking forward to having the program up and running soon. Thank you.
Any other councilors? I want to thank Councilor Kane, Councilor Andronico for all their hard work with keeping us updated. Thank you to Mr. Walker for our update as well. And with that, we're going to move on to the second item on the agenda, please.
Number 2, 2023-096, ordinance amending Chapter 375 of the zoning, creation of a congregate elderly housing overlay district.
I'd like to recognize Councilor Phelan.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to send this to ordinance committee.
Okay, we got a motion made by Councilor Phelan to send this into the ordinance committee, and as well as advertise.
Advertise, please,
Yep,
yes.
as well as advertise. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilor McCarthy. And on the motion, I'd like to recognize Councilor McCarthy. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just going through the paperwork, I wonder if Mr. Walker could elaborate a little bit. I see the letter from the mayor to yourself, so I'd like to see if I could get a little bit more information out of Mr. Walker, if that's okay.
Through you, Mr. President, thank you, Counselor. As the counselor mentioned, you have an introductory letter for this zoning amendment before you from the mayor. Essentially, this amendment co-sponsored by Ward 5 Councilor Phelan will create a senior housing overlay district in the area that is currently home to Eastern Nazarene College in Wollaston. And we want to be very clear, and the mayor was in his letter, that this is a preemptive in case of emergency, if something changes over the course of the next several years, many years, hopefully, that's when this ordinance would become operable. This would be a 55 and over residential overlay district, which would create the framework to provide over 55 housing in that area, specifically to that area. The nuts and bolts, there is a draft ordinance that comes along with this, but our expectation, quite frankly, is that there is back and forth, give and take, deliberation, input on, really what the mechanics of this wants to be. And again, we really want to reiterate that this is a break in case of emergency measure. The mayor firmly believes the college is a valuable community partner, has been for quite some time, and is our expectation and hope that the college will be where it is for quite some time. But as everyone in this room is well aware, any institution of higher education of the sort of Eastern Nazarene faces some challenges. So the mayor internally, with his team and with Councilor Phelan, kicked around some thoughts, ideas about what could we do now to potentially solve an issue that may come up quite a ways away. And this is the framework for that. So with that, Councilor, I appreciate your motion to committee.
Good.
Okay,
Thank you.
Any of the councilors? Okay, so a motion made by Councilor Phelan and seconded by, I'm sorry, I'd like to recognize Councilor Mahoney. Go right ahead.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, I'm all for a 55 and older community being developed for the city of Quincy, and I recognize that this is preemptive in the case that something might happen with Eastern Nazarene. I appreciate that explanation. Currently, I think Quincy College is also housing some of a college nursing program there. Why would we not, instead of build a 15-story building for Quincy College, that is also on the table, that's going to cost the taxpayers an unprecedented amount of money to do, would we not look to potentially move Quincy College and solve two universities, college and universities problems, maybe as a solution as well? Just curious why that wasn't taken into consideration.
I'll ask Mr. Walker if he has any.
Sure, through you, Mr. President. This type of ordinance would be outside of any sort of potential opportunity that may exist. As you know from state law, any use that the college, let's say hypothetically, that the college wanted to do something different, under state law, any educational or religious use would be covered under its existing use, so there wouldn't be a need to create an overlay zoning district. This comes in the case of if those options are exhausted or those are not options that the college, the city, the community chooses to pursue. This is purely outside of those options that already exist and will exist while the college is still there.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Any of the councilors, or Councilor Mahoney, do you want to finish up? Or? That's good? Okay, good. So just real quick about this overlay. I love the idea of being a proactive approach. I think this opens the doorway for other areas and other developments around the city that may have to be tweaked down the road. So thank you for bringing this about, Councilor Phelan. I know this is going to go into committee, and we'll talk a lot more about this, but it's a good start. So the motion made by Councilor Phelan to put it in ordinance committee and advertise, and seconded by Councilor McCarthy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, and it will be put into the ordinance committee and advertised as well. Next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk.
2023-096, ordinance amending 375 zoning, creating a special district 8.6 senior housing overlay district.
It's the same
Oh,
one, I'm sorry.
excuse me.
Go right ahead to the next one. That's okay.
3, 2023-097, resolve urging the Department of Public Utilities to expedite the approval of the Quincy Municipal Aggregation Program application.
I'd like to recognize Councilor Andronico.
Thank you, Mr. President. About a week ago, I got my electricity bill from National Grid, and it was $360. I don't have natural gas hooked up to my home, and I was just thinking about year over year, the difference in the rates that have been paid by so many folks within Quincy. And, we're coming up on another winter season, and rates are about to spike. And I decided to go back and look at some of the things that had gone on within the council just before I had joined. I realized that way back in April in 2018, this body began discussions about the municipal aggregation program for the ability for the city to go out and get a supplier for different electricity rates to lower costs for residents throughout the city. And we finally submitted that formal application to the Department of Public Utilities in January of 2021. And our application to go out and negotiate those rates for consumers has been sitting with the DPU since that time. Now, in February 2023, rates for residents in Quincy spiked all the way to 39.7 cents per kilowatt, where in Boston, where they do have a municipal aggregation plan in place, they only had to pay 10.9 cents per kilowatt. So we're talking about a potential 70% reduction if the DPU was able to approve our municipal aggregation plan. And doing some further digging, since the beginning of 2022, the DPU has approved 19 new municipal aggregation plans across Massachusetts, and Quincy has not been one of them. And I think it's time that the DPU and the state give Quincy's application the review that it needs, and it's time for them to approve the city's application for municipal aggregation plan so that ratepayers within Quincy can actually see a reduction in their energy bills. And I think that going through another winter of potentially looking at another 40 cents per kilowatt during peak times is just unacceptable, especially when this body in the city has been working towards a plan to reduce costs for our residents. So with that, I would like to make a motion to approve and to place into the Oversight Committee.
Do you want to put that into ordinance and oversight, or both? Just oversight, okay. So a motion made by Councilor Andronico to approve and put it into oversight. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilor Kane, and on the motion, Councilor Kane, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Andronico called me about this last week, and I didn't realize that we had approved this conceptually, over 4 years ago. So it is a long time coming. We first proposed this in collaboration with QCAN, Quincy Climate Action Network, and obviously with the support of my colleagues in the City Council, the support of the mayor, we put forward an application for municipal aggregation to DPU. This is another case where large incumbents are extracting rents from residents of the city. So not unlike the municipal broadband thing where you've got limited options for service providers for what is essential infrastructure, you're getting gouged. So this is just another place where if the DPU gets their act together and approves this application for the city of Quincy, it will allow considerable savings for residents, necessary savings, obviously in questionable economic environments, et cetera. But that's ridiculous that the place that's just north of us is paying on average 20 cents less per kilowatt hour. So we look forward to enjoying that at some point in time and to having access to more diverse, sources of energy, including different types of renewables, which I know that residents have been asking for as well. So I thank my colleague for bringing this to our attention again and look forward to seeing the DPU move this forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize Councilor Devine.
Yeah, this is something that's very important to my constituents also. There's many seniors that might be living on a limited income, and they've talked about it. Many people have talked to me about all different types of things, and so this is very good to hear, and I hope, like our other colleagues here said, that they can expedite it and get it going because it will help a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize Councilor Phelan.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I thank my colleagues for bringing this in. Didn't we vote for this? To vote to send the application up? And they're just not looking at it? Is that what's going on? Yes, okay. All right, yeah, I'm full support of this. I voted for the original one when we came, and I'm pretty disappointed that they haven't even looked at our application. So kudos to Councilor Andronico for bringing this in, and Councilor Kane. I think it's a good thing. I thought it was a good thing then. I think it's a good thing now. So let's start pushing it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Always good to reintroduce. So we have a motion to approve and to push, move it into oversight from Councilor Andronico. We have a second by Councilor Kane. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico. Yes. Counselor Kane. Yes. Counselor Devine. Yes. Counselor Harris. Yes. Counselor Liang. Yes. Counselor Mahoney. Counselor McCarthy. Yes. Counselor Phelan.
Yes.
President DeBona.
Yes.
9 members.
9 members in the affirmative, motion carries as well as going into the Oversight Committee. Next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Number 4, 2023-098, a gift for $750 from Schlager Auto Body Repairs, Inc. for Dare.
Motion approved made by Counselor Kane, seconded by Counselor Andronico. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico. Yes. Counselor Kane. Yes. Counselor Devine. Yes. Counselor Harris. Yes. Counselor Liang. Yes. Counselor Mahoney. Yes. Counselor McCarthy. Yes. Counselor Phelan.
Yes.
President DeBona.
Yes.
9 members.
9 members in the affirmative, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Number 5, 2023-099, a gift for $7,500 from the Copeland Family Foundation, Inc. to the Quincy Animal Shelter.
Motion approved made by Counselor Kane, seconded by Counselor Andronico. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico. Yes. Counselor Kane.
Yes.
Counselor Devine.
Yes.
Counselor Harris. Yes. Counselor Liang. Yes. Counselor Mahoney. Yes. Counselor McCarthy. Yes. Counselor Phelan.
Yes.
President DeBona.
Yes.
9 members.
9 members in the affirmative, motion carries. I believe that is it for our agenda items for tonight. Moving on to approval of previous meeting minutes of September 11th, 2000. Motion to approve made by Counselor Kane. Do I have a second? Seconded by Counselor Devine. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Communication and reports from the mayor, other city officers, and city boards. Moving on, unfinished business and preceding meeting. We have none. Reports of committees. We have any utilities, anything else on there? We're good? Presentation of petitions, memorials, and remonstrance. Any other councils? Seeing none, moving on to motions, orders, and resolutions. Moving on, scheduling of committee meetings and public hearings. Looks like we'll be reconvening here on Monday, October 2nd, which is a few weeks from now, and then we'll be going Monday, October 16th. Both at 6:30 city council meetings. Motion to adjourn made by Councilor Kane, seconded by Councilor Liang. All those in favor say aye. Aye. You guys have it?